The 1930s witnessed a turbulent peace in Europe. The Treaty of Versailles, signed after World War I, had left Germany deeply scarred and resentful. The harsh reparations imposed on Germany crippled its economy and fueled political instability. Against this backdrop, the Nazi Party, led by the charismatic but ruthless Adolf Hitler, rose to prominence. Hitler's ideology was built on a toxic mix of nationalism, militarism, and anti-Semitism. He promised to restore German pride and power, blaming the Jews and other minorities for the country's woes. The Nazis' ascent to power in 1933 marked a turning point. Hitler systematically dismantled democratic institutions, suppressed dissent, and began rearming Germany in violation of the Treaty of Versailles. His expansionist ambitions, outlined in his manifesto Mein Kampf, sent shockwaves across Europe, but many nations, wary of another war, chose appeasement. On September 1, 1939, the fragile peace in Europe shattered. Hitler, emboldened by his previous unopposed annexations, unleashed the Wehrmacht, Germany's powerful military machine, on Poland. This act of aggression marked the beginning of World War II. The invasion of Poland showcased the devastating effectiveness of Germany's blitzkrieg tactics. This lightning war strategy combined rapid armored thrusts with overwhelming air power to swiftly overwhelm the enemy. Despite fierce resistance, Poland, abandoned by its allies, fell within weeks. Britain and France, bound by treaties to defend Poland, declared war on Germany on September 3, 1939. However, their response was initially cautious and largely ineffective. This period, marked by a lack of major military operations in the West, became known as the Phony War. In the spring of 1940, Hitler unleashed the full force of the Wehrmacht on Western Europe. Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and finally France fell in rapid succession. The speed and ferocity of the German advance stunned the world. Britain, standing alone against the Nazi war machine, braced for a German invasion. The fate of the free world hinged on the outcome of the Battle of Britain, an epic air campaign that raged in the skies over southern England. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, sought to destroy the Royal Air Force and gain air superiority as a prelude to invasion. However, the RAF, bolstered by the iconic Spitfire and Hurricane fighter planes, fought with extraordinary courage and skill. With Britain defiant, Hitler turned his attention eastward. On June 22, 1941, he launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. This colossal gamble aimed to conquer vast territories, secure vital resources, and crush the last major power opposing Nazi Germany. The initial German assault, spearheaded by three massive army groups, caught the Soviet Union off guard. The Wehrmacht made stunning advances, capturing vast swathes of territory and inflicting heavy casualties. However, the sheer size of the Soviet Union, the resilience of the Red Army, and the harsh Russian winter soon took their toll. The Battle of Moscow, fought in the shadow of the Kremlin, marked a turning point. Despite suffering immense losses, the Red Army, bolstered by Siberian reinforcements, repulsed the German offensive, shattering the myth of Wehrmacht invincibility. Section 5, Turning the Tide, Stalingrad and El Alamein. The year 1942 witnessed two pivotal battles that shifted the momentum of the war. These battles were not just significant in terms of military strategy, but also had profound implications for the morale and future operations of the Allied and Axis forces. In North Africa, the British Eighth Army, led by the brilliant General Bernard Montgomery, halted the advance of German and Italian forces under the command of the legendary Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, at the Second Battle of El Alamein. This battle was crucial as it marked the first major offensive victory for the Allies in the Western Desert Campaign, boosting Allied morale and proving that the Axis forces could be defeated. Meanwhile, in the ruins of Stalingrad, a brutal and protracted battle raged for control of the strategically vital city on the Volga River. The city was of immense strategic importance, serving as a key industrial and transport hub. The battle saw intense urban warfare, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The German Sixth Army, led by General Friedrich Paulus, became trapped in the city, surrounded by a determined Red Army. Despite initial successes, the harsh winter and relentless Soviet counterattacks took a severe toll on the German forces, leading to a dire situation. The Battle of Stalingrad, one of the bloodiest battles in human history, ended in February 1943 with the surrender of the remnants of the German Sixth Army. The battle resulted in nearly 2 million casualties, including soldiers and civilians, highlighting the immense human cost of the conflict. This decisive Soviet victory marked a turning point on the Eastern Front, shattering German offensive capabilities and shifting the initiative firmly to the Red Army. The victory at Stalingrad, coupled with the success at El Alamein, signaled a significant shift in the Allies' favor, setting the stage for future offensives that would eventually lead to the downfall of the Axis powers. Section 6: D-Day and the liberation of France. With Germany on the defensive in the east, the Western Allies prepared to open a second front in Europe. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in history, unfolded on the beaches of Normandy, France. Under the overall command of U.S. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Allied forces including American, British, Canadian and Free French troops stormed ashore, facing fierce resistance from entrenched German defenders. Despite heavy losses, the Allies secured a foothold on the continent. The liberation of Paris in August 1944 marked a turning point in the war in the West. The Allied advance continued, liberating France and pushing into Germany itself. Section 7: The Allied Advance and the Crumbling Reich. As the Red Army advanced from the east and the Western Allies from the west, the Nazi regime began to crumble. Allied bombing raids reduced German cities to rubble, while the German people, exhausted by years of war, faced increasing hardship. Despite the deteriorating situation, Hitler, increasingly detached from reality, refused to surrender. He poured resources into futile offensives, such as the Battle of the Bulge, a desperate attempt to split the Allied lines in the Ardennes forest in December 1944. However, German resistance was crumbling. The Red Army reached the outskirts of Berlin in April 1945, while the Western Allies crossed the Rhine and raced towards the heart of Germany. Section 8: The Fall of Berlin and Victory in Europe. In the final days of the war, Berlin, the once mighty capital of the Third Reich, was reduced to a smouldering ruin. The relentless Allied bombing campaigns had left the city in tatters, with its infrastructure crippled and its citizens in despair. The once bustling streets were now filled with rubble and the echoes of a fallen regime. Soviet forces, fueled by a desire for revenge for the horrors inflicted upon their homeland, engaged in a brutal battle for every street and building. The fighting was fierce and unrelenting, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Red Army's determination to capture Berlin was matched only by the desperation of the German defenders, who fought to the last man. On April 30th, 1945, as Soviet troops closed in on his underground bunker, Adolf Hitler committed suicide, ending his reign of terror. His death marked the collapse of Nazi leadership, leaving Germany in disarray. The remaining German forces, now leaderless and demoralized, began to surrender in droves. On May 2nd, 1945, Berlin fell to the Red Army, effectively ending the war in Europe. The capture of Berlin was a symbolic victory, signaling the defeat of Nazi Germany. The Soviet flag, raised over the Reichstag, became an iconic image of triumph and liberation. Victory in Europe Day, VE Day, was officially declared on May 8, 1945, marking the end of one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Across the continent, people took to the streets in celebration, rejoicing in the hard-won peace. The joy was tempered by the immense loss and devastation that the war had wrought. The war in Europe had claimed tens of millions of lives, leaving an indelible scar on the continent. Cities lay in ruins, and countless families mourned the loss of loved ones. The survivors faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives and their nations from the ashes of conflict. The legacy of World War II would shape the future of Europe for generations to come. Section 9: Legacy of War, a Continent Remade. The Second World War had a profound and lasting impact on Europe and the world. The conflict not only redrew borders, but also reshaped the very fabric of societies across the continent. Cities lay in ruins, economies were shattered, and millions of lives were forever changed. The war reshaped the political map of Europe, leading to the emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers, locked in a Cold War rivalry that would define the latter half of the 20th century. This ideological battle between capitalism and communism influenced global politics, economics, and even culture, creating a world divided by an Iron Curtain. The war also had a profound social and cultural impact. As cities began to rebuild, there was a collective effort to ensure that such devastation would never occur again. This period saw significant social reforms, including the establishment of welfare states and the promotion of human rights. The horrors of the Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime, shocked the world and led to the creation of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, aimed at preventing future atrocities. These institutions sought to promote peace, security, and cooperation among nations. The war also spurred technological advancements, particularly in aviation, medicine, and nuclear energy. Innovations that were initially developed for wartime purposes found new applications in peacetime, leading to rapid progress in various fields. However, the development and use of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki cast a long shadow over the future, highlighting the devastating potential of nuclear weapons. The bombings not only ended the war but also ushered in an era of nuclear anxiety, prompting global discussions on disarmament and the ethical implications of such powerful technology.